I'm sorry. I should have opened the door.
My friend, I am standing at a grave as I tell you this. It is raining a little. I am 78 years old, and I am standing in the rain at the grave of a man I wronged. His name was Frank Delaney. For 19 years he stood outside my church every night. And every night I saw a problem. I was wrong about all of it. Let me tell you what I should have seen 43 years ago. In 1981, I was 35 years old. I was the new priest at St. Augustine's, energetic, certain. I knew what was right. I knew it the way only a young man who has not yet been humbled can know it. And there was a man in our town, Frank Delaney, 58 years old. Frank was, in the language of the town, the parish embarrassment. Every evening, Frank came to the church, drunk. He stood outside the door, during evening mass, sometimes Sunday mornings. He didn't come in. He stood at the threshold. Sometimes he muttered, sometimes he swayed, sometimes he just stood there. The congregation was uncomfortable. Parents kept their children away from him. People complained. "Father, this man is a shadow on the church." And I agreed with them. I saw a drunk man at my door, frightening my parishioners. That is all I saw. That is all I let myself see. I asked Frank to leave several times. At first, gently. "Frank, perhaps tonight is not the night." Then, less gently. I told myself I was protecting the parish. I told myself a drunk man at the door was a danger, a disruption, a problem to be managed. I told myself many things. And then came Easter, 1981. The church was full, every pew, families in their best clothes, the most important night of the year. And Frank was at the door, drunk, swaying there. I went outside. I was angry, though I told myself I was being firm, not angry. I said, "Frank, not tonight, not like this, please go home." And Frank looked at me. He opened his mouth. He wanted to say something. I have spent 43 years wondering what it was, because I didn't let him say it. I just waited for him to leave. And he did. He closed his mouth. He turned. He walked into the dark. That was the last time I ever saw Frank Delaney. After that Easter, Frank didn't come back. And God forgive me, I was relieved. The problem had solved itself. The shadow was gone from the door. Easter the following year was peaceful. I didn't wonder where he was. I didn't ask. I had a parish to run. Some months later, I heard Frank Delaney had died, alone, in his house. No family came forward, no one organized a funeral. So I did one. I want to be honest with you about that funeral, my friend, because this is the part I am most ashamed of. I conducted it out of duty. It was short, it was correct, and my heart was closed the entire time. I buried a man I had judged. I said the words, I felt nothing. I thought I was burying a problem. I had no idea who I was burying. I had no idea what that man had been carrying to my door every single night for 19 years. That was 1982. 42 years passed. And then, last month, I was going through the old parish records, the oldest books, the ones from before my time. I was not looking for Frank. I had not thought of Frank in years. And I found a name in the register from 1962. Delaney, Margaret. Funeral, 1962. And directly beneath it, Delaney, Thomas. Infant. Funeral, 1962. Frank Delaney had a wife and a child, Margaret, and a baby named Thomas. They both died in 1962, 1 week apart. I sat with that book for a long time, and I began finally, 42 years too late, to ask the question I should have asked in 1981. Who was Frank Delaney? I found someone who remembered, an old parishioner, in her 90s now. She had known Frank before I ever came to Stowe, and she told me who Frank Delaney had been. Before 1962, Frank was a carpenter. He sat in the front pew every Sunday with his wife, Margaret. He was, the old woman told me, one of the most faithful men in the parish, steady, kind, devout. And then Margaret died in childbirth, and the baby, little Thomas, died 1 week later. And Frank Delaney came apart. He began to drink. He raged at God. He could not understand how a good God could take both of them in a single week. But here is what the old woman told me next, and this is what broke me. Frank never stopped believing. He stopped feeling worthy. He believed he was too angry, too broken, too drunk, too full of rage at God to be allowed inside a church. He did not think he deserved to come in, but he could not stay away. So every evening he came to the door, and he stood at the threshold, close enough to hear the Mass, close enough to be near God, but never letting himself come in, because he did not believe he was worthy of the inside. And then the old woman told me one more thing. She said, "Father, did you ever notice what time Frank always came?" I said no. I had never noticed anything about Frank except that I wanted him gone. She said, 6 o'clock, every evening. 6 o'clock, exactly. That was the hour, Father, the hour Margaret died. And a week later, at the same hour, the baby. Every evening, at 6 o'clock. The hour he lost everything. Frank Delaney came to the house of God, and he stood at the door, too broken to come in, too faithful to stay away, for 19 years. And I, the priest, the one man whose entire purpose was to open that door, I sent him away. I sent away the most faithful man who ever came to my church, because he didn't look like faith. He looked like a problem. My friend, I have to ask you something, and I have to ask myself. Who is standing at the edge of your life that you have decided is a problem? The difficult relative, the neighbor everyone avoids, the person at church who makes everyone uncomfortable, the one who is always there, at the edge, not quite in, and somehow inconvenient. What are they carrying to your door that you have never thought to wonder about? I am not asking this from above you. I am asking it from below. I am the priest who sent away a grieving father for 19 years and called it protecting the parish. I am asking you not to be me. I'd be glad to know who you're thinking of right now, if you want to tell me. There is a passage in Luke that I have read 1,000 times. I read it differently now. Jesus tells of two men who go to pray. One is a respected religious man. He stands at the front. He thanks God that he is not like others. The other is a tax collector, despised, ashamed, and the tax collector stood at a distance. He would not even look up to heaven, but beat his breast and said, "God, have mercy on me, a sinner." And Jesus says, it was the tax collector, the one at a distance, the one who felt unworthy, who went home justified before God. Not the man at the front, the man at the distance. Frank Delaney stood at a distance for 19 years. He would not look up to heaven. He stood at the threshold and beat his breast and did not believe he was worthy to come in. And I believe with everything I have learned in 53 years, that Frank Delaney went home justified before God every single night. He was closer to heaven at that threshold than I was at my altar, and I could not see it, because he didn't look like faith. So that is why I'm standing in the rain, my friend, at Frank Delaney's grave. He is buried beside Margaret and beside little Thomas, together now, the three of them, as they should be. I came here to say something to Frank, 43 years too late, but I came. I said, "I'm sorry, Frank. I should have opened the door. I should have asked. You stood at the threshold for 19 years, and I never once thought to wonder why. Forgive me." And then I did the thing I should have done in 1981. I sat down, in the rain, beside his grave, and I let him stay. I let him be near me, which is all he ever wanted, to be near. My friend, if there is someone at the edge of your life standing at your threshold, open the door. You do not know what they are carrying. You do not know what hour brought them to your door. Open the door. Ask, before it is 43 years too late. That is why I tell these stories.